Okay, so welcome back to the new episode of the Crosse Thinker. And as you can see today, we're all in this situation, so I cannot go to the campus anymore. I locked all my equipment in my buildings, and the building is locked, as far as I know today. So starting from today, I'm actually going to do this remotely, which is kind of fun. So this is the first time we're doing it. Maybe there is some sound quality issues, maybe there are some recording issues, but just leave your comments or send me an email, and we will improve as time goes. So anyway, okay, so today we have Dr. Wenting Mu, a doctor of psychology, and she's going to come here to talk about the anxieties people have during this special period. I know a lot of my students are isolated at their homes. They're forced to go back to their homes, and still they're going to continue to study maybe in 1 week. And so maybe there are some anxieties or stress generated, or even panicking generated because of this situation. So the purpose of this episode is try to give you a way to get some opinions from an expert on how to deal with this kind of situations. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. Wenting Mu. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very honored to be invited here and to have the opportunity to talk with all of you about the anxiety and also how to respond in this very special and very challenging time. So I want to introduce myself a little bit more to begin with. I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow at University of Pennsylvania, and I work in the Center of Treatment and Study of Anxiety. And I work with Dr. Edna Foa, and she's like a top expert in the country on studying anxiety disorders and also developing treatments for anxiety disorders. My specialty has been on anxiety disorders, specifically generalized anxiety disorders, and also some other related kinds of anxiety disorders. So during this very special period of time, even though people who do not have anxiety disorders to begin with, and you may feel anxious and you may feel like distressed in these kind of situations. So today I would like to talk with you and to collaboratively think about what we can do in such a very special kind of time and to make our time easier and to spend.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I want to also mention, like, Dr. Wenting Mu is also seeing patients as a clinician in psychotherapy. I don't know if I use the right word, but so yeah. So she can help us with this situation a lot. So I will actually just go over the list we talked before this interview. So there are like several kind of anxieties we may think of. The first one, let's talk about the fear about the virus. For example, for me, I think I generate anxiety really easily. So everywhere I go, I start to see, okay, people that are close to me, I become like nervous. And if I see any places people have been touching and then I touch the places, I feel nervous. I just feel like everywhere I go, I see a threat. Is that a reasonable reaction?
Yeah, I would say that's a very, very common and very normal reaction. Actually, that kind of anxiety is functional and helpful because, like, say, for example, people who are not afraid of the virus and they may still go out in this very special time and hang out and socialize with people. And then they're at higher risk of actually getting infected with the virus and putting themselves, health, and people around them into danger. So to have certain kind of anxiety and that mobilize your body, mobilize your energy to do something about the virus and to prevent yourself and your family members from contracting the virus. So that is actually a very functional and very healthy way to respond to the situation. So that is also a point that I want to stress across all throughout our talk today, which is anxiety in moderate amount is very helpful. It's very functional. It's something that everybody of us has to have to survive in this society.
However, is it almost like a motivation?
Yeah, it provides a lot of motivation because otherwise you know what is the right thing to do. You need to prepare for the danger, but then you never do something. But then things are going to change very rapidly when people begin to get anxious and people will just begin to act very like in a very responsive way. So anxiety is good. Anxiety is a very good thing that we cannot live without. However, too much anxiety or anxiety when it becomes excessive is going to be more bad than good. It's going to do more harm than good.
How do I know actually my anxiety is exceeding the right level?
And that's a very good question. Okay, so like it's a very easy to answer question. Like sometimes if you begin to have the thought, like say for example, um, if you worry about having the disease and you wash your hands whenever before you begin to eat or after you go to some places where you think it's dangerous, then that totally makes sense, right? But if you're washing your hands, like say for example, 100 times a day, and you probably know very obviously like this is not making any sense, this is not helpful at all, and then you really want to stop yourself from doing that, but you find it really hard to control yourself and to find it really hard to prevent yourself from doing that. And that is the moment that you should begin to question whether this anxiety is still in a moderate format or this anxiety has already become very excessive.
Another thing I may want to ask is, for me, for example, I took a flu shot for the first time of my life right before the whole thing happened. And then I started to feel a little bit symptoms, which is like flu.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a fever, but I just feel like, okay, I have a lot of pressures in my chest. Do I have a shortness of breath? So I think, okay, maybe I got coronavirus. But then after 2 days, I feel like, okay, I totally don't get it. And after 2 days, I feel like, okay, this time I definitely get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, and I also know that if I'm anxious, I will feel pressures in my chest just because of my anxiety.
Mm.
So putting all this together, that's kind of like disturbing. So that's definitely overacting, right?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, like I would say, so of course, on the border of what is normal amount of anxiety and what is like excessive anxiety, there might be some cases or some instances where it seems to be pretty fuzzy. It can be hard to judge. But I would say, I think this is a very good question, but I can give you like a more systematic way to answer the question. So we have some very common symptoms of excessive anxiety, and I can give you a list. Like say, for example, if you begin to find yourself to worry about things without much action, you just like think a lot, worry a lot, and you find it really hard to stop yourself from thinking about that. And that is a sign of too much anxiety. Okay, because
Without action.
Without action, you just like think a lot. What does that thinking help you, right? And we just call that worry or rumination. And it comes to in the format of interfering with your ability to pay attention to important things. So that difficulty with concentration, with paying attention, is a very defining feature for too much anxiety. Okay, so that is one sign. And also anxiety, people who are excessively anxious, and very often they find themselves to be actually irritable. So if you find yourself to be really, upset, very easily triggered by some very, very little things, things that you understand that doesn't really make sense, doesn't really warrant that much of an anger reaction, then you probably can ask yourself, are you kind of overreacting? And that's sometimes also like a common reaction of excessive anxiety. And also sometimes people may have muscle tension. They feel like the muscle like it's really getting very tight, and they do not even pay attention to that. But then after a long time, they realize, oh, it really hurts. And that's another common reaction of excessive anxiety. And also, when people get difficulty with sleeping, they cannot fall asleep, they have a hard time getting up, or like they wake up really early, but and then after a whole night of sleep, they feel very tired as opposed to feeling rested. That's also a very common issue of excessive anxiety. And then also, like sometimes people feel like they're restless, they cannot sit still, okay, and they just like walk around in the room without doing anything, but they just like feel so on edge. That's also a very common issue of excessive anxiety.
Interesting. So,
Mm-hmm.
What's the right way of thinking about the fear of the virus? Let's say, let's just focus on the fears of the virus, particularly.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make our life easier if we are already irritated by the fear? We totally know this is not rational. Mm-hmm. But we find ourselves in this situation, and how do we actually make ourselves feel better?
Mm-hmm. And that's a very good question. So I would say again, if you find yourself to be excessively worried about things, I would say that may be a time to consult your doctors or even to see a psychologist, because too much anxiety is very bad for your health, for mental health in a variety of ways. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me for like some simple things that you can do at home without before going to a doctor, I would say keeping active, being active, being physically active, that can help with anxiety, especially mild amount of anxiety. Exercise, especially aerobic exercise, has been found to be really helpful with mild form of anxiety. Um, so that's very simple. That's, it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost you time. You just like do some exercise, like the recommended amount of exercise is like 150 minutes per week of aerobic exercise. If you can do that, that'll be fantastic. That is helpful for anxiety. That is helpful for depression. That is also helpful for your physical health. So that is one thing. And then also talking about your feelings, that's very helpful with management of anxiety. So if you feel like kind of anxious, you worry a lot about things, like racing thoughts going on in your head without stopping, don't bottle it up within yourself. Okay, talk with your family members, talk with your friends, talk about it with people that you trust. So just talking about feelings itself can help alleviate anxiety to a great extent. Okay, and also eating something healthy, that's very important. Don't eat too much sugar. Don't drink too much coffee, because we know those kind of things can make people to be more prone to anxiety. So that's kind of important. Eat a lot of vegetables, eat a lot of like proteins, and that's very helpful. And also sometimes if you still find yourself to worry a lot, and like all these kind of like thoughts about very negative things cannot stop in your head, you can journal them. Start writing them down. That can be very helpful as well, because when you journal them very often, and also I can give you a tip about how to journal anxiety. Anxiety is that the nature of anxiety thoughts is like a worry something bad is going to happen in the future. Okay, so it's always about something negative. It's always about future. So if you can try to use that format to clarify, verbalize, and articulate your anxiety in your mind, and you probably will find that very soon all your anxiety is about the same thing. Okay, if you like come back from a supermarket, you worry that you get too close to someone, that you wonder whether you are going to contract the virus and the disease, then ultimately you're worried about something. You're worried about that you're going to get ill sometime in the future. You are going to get infected by coronavirus sometime in the future. Okay, and then the next day you begin to sneeze, you begin to cough, then you worry that you're going to get coronavirus, sometime near in the future. So if you just begin to jot those down and write those worries down, and you just realize most of the time, triggered by whatever situations or events, you always worry that you're going to get coronavirus in the near future. So it's all the same kind of worry, just again and again and again, repeating in your head in all different kind of formats. And we just call that repetitive negative thinking. And that is a defining feature for anxiety. Okay, but then if you write them down, you realize you're just like worried about one thought in many different kind of formats coming in different kind of ways, then that by itself helps you to understand better about your anxiety, and also help you to manage your anxiety, because ultimately it's just the same thing, right?
Just want to jump in here. So do you mean just write them down, or do we actually go back and read our journals, or even just assess ourselves, or just writing it down will be helpful enough?
Well, like if you write them down, you don't have to it just like become very obvious. You don't have to go back and read them. You will begin to be more aware of your anxiety as opposed to being more controlled by your anxiety. Okay.
So just writing it down that's the point.
Yeah, writing them down in a format that I worry something bad is going to happen in the future. Just that itself is going to help you clarify your anxiety a lot. Because like people who are very anxious, you may have the experience that when you're very anxious, you feel like the thoughts in your mind is not clear. It's not logical. You feel like it's like you have a cloud in your mind that prevents you from thinking clearly. Okay, and that's why writing it down is so helpful, just because it helps you to clarify things, and so that you can think clear again. Okay,
I kind of can get the point, because if you write something down and it's already thought through, then you won't think about it again, unless there's really something new, right?
Yeah. Right. It helps you to put an end to your anxiety, because another feature of excessive anxiety is that it never stops. It's the same thinking coming back again and again and again. That's why we call it repetitive negative thinking. Okay, it's very repetitive. It's the same thing again and again and again. It's not logical. It's not linear. Okay, so that is why writing it down give you almost like a period, give you almost like an ending to that thought. Okay, because you kind of contain it. You're telling yourself, okay, then I'm thinking about all these kind of things in all different kind of formats, all different kind of sentences, but it's all ultimately all about the same thing, that I'm worried that I'm going to get coronavirus. And then that helps you a lot to kind of contain and manage the anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense. Great. So we are done with the first one, the fear about the virus. But now another thing we are going to worry, especially for people, who basically are not working right now due to the coronavirus, because as teacher, we teach online, we still get paid, but there are people who live on paychecks. They get from restaurant, they get from a salon, they get from a nail shop. And now basically their work are suspended, or definitely the workflow are definitely decreasing, right? So if I'm worried about my financial situation, I'm worried about, am I going to lose my job, or I'm worried about how am I supposed to pay the rent, because basically I don't know how long this thing is going to last in the future, right? So if I have those kind of concerns, what's the right way to think about it? Because we clearly, if there's anything we can do, we have already done it, right? So basically it's just a situation, it's an accident, there's nothing we can do. So how can we stop torturing ourselves just by sitting there and thinking about what may happen?
Yeah, I think that's a very legitimate and a very valid response in this kind of situation, because the coronavirus, not only by itself, it causes so many business to stop and to pause, but also it's now giving you a really hard time on the stock market and on the economy on a large scale. And so it's very legitimate, people that may begin to worry about, losing their jobs, getting unemployed, or getting more difficult to find a new job.
And one more thing I want to add here is just, especially for students, you're worrying about how am I going to take the exam? How am I going to finish the homework? How am I going to graduate if I'm a senior right now? Right. Those are kind of similar to this, right? So
yeah, very similar, like especially for people who are going to graduate this year, and they are supposed to be on the job market right now. They're supposed to be looking for jobs, right? But then like now, with all these companies stop their business and they cannot hire people, they may be even like begin to think about firing people. So so the prospect, I would say, is not very optimistic. It's definitely like and very understandable that people worry about finding a job, people worry about getting fired. It's all the same thing ultimately. It's about getting money for what I need. So I will say in these kind of situations, the situation right now is definitely beyond our control. And that is a situation that human beings hate very much. Okay, so we have been living in a situation where we believe, we live under the belief, the faith that if we work hard, then we're going to get rewarded, that things are going to work out fine. But then now is an exception to that, because this is a very special time. Who knows when the pandemic is going to end? Who knows when this virus is going to be, we are going to find a cure for it. Nobody has that answer, right? If you look at the press conference from the White House today, yesterday, and the reporters give the president a hard time asking that question. The president cannot answer that question either. So nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. It may be in a month, and then they have a cure for coronavirus, and everything is going to end. And then no one has to worry about these kind of things anymore. But then maybe we won't have that cure until another year. Okay, so nobody knows about what's going to happen. So the situation is definitely out of control right now. So in this kind of situation, people worry, and that's a very normal reaction, because we do not know what's going to come tomorrow, so we worry about it. However, I want you to be paying attention to that although it's very understandable to worry about these kind of things, it doesn't help to worry about it. Right?
That's brutal. That's brutal. But that's true.
Worrying about it does nothing. It does not help you to get a job. It does not, give you money, right? So I would say what you need to do is to prepare for the worst. So think about the worst case scenario. You may lose your job. If you're worried about losing your job, then prepare for that. Prepare that. Imagine that you really lose your job, and then think about what you're going to do about it. Okay, do you have enough money in a bank? If you do not have enough money in a bank, think about all the policy that the White House recently released, trying to help people to survive their hard time. What can you apply? What can you do about it? What can you make advantage of? Okay, and then if you don't still don't feel like you're in good shape of financial situation, then think about what else can you do to help yourself to survive this period of time. So you really need to prepare for the worst. Okay, prepare as if you're really going to lose your job. Prepare as if you're really not going to find a job, and then hope for the best. Okay,
That's a valid point. So
uh-huh.
is it fair for me to say, number one, action is better than just thoughts, right? If you have the time to think, to worry, better turn that into action. Like, yeah, just prepare for the worst, right? The second thing is, if you're worried about something, and for the worst case, just imagine it already has happened. And then you start making strategies to deal with the situation. Then that will actually basically that will ease your anxieties, because you know, oh, even for the worst case, actually I have a plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, an action is a very good how to say, is a very good medicine for anxiety. Okay, so without action, people very often can be paralyzed by the anxiety, and that's very something that you probably know that experience very well when you procrastinate before examinations. That you are so worried about examinations that, as opposed to preparing for the examinations, you do not do anything. You just like begin to watch YouTube videos, right? That's a kind of paralysis. We call that anxiety paralysis, which means that too much anxiety puts you into a mode of no action, which is no good for whatever that you're worried about at all. So we would say taking some action is definitely helpful. And also I want to mention that I often say to my patients that anxiety is useful, but only for 30 seconds. Okay, after 30 seconds, you need to do something about it. Because anxiety is useful in the sense that it alerts you there's a danger out there and you need to do something about it. And if you do not do anything about it, so why is it useful? Okay, so like right now, what you can do, like say for example, in the first kind of fear that we just talked about contracting the disease of the coronavirus, you're worried about that you may actually contract it. So you want to buy a lot of hand sanitizer. You want to like wash your hands as much as you could. You want to like stop hanging out with people. You want to like social distance yourself with people. And those are actions, and those actions keep you alive. Those actions reduce the likelihood for you to contract the disease. The same thing applies to when you're worried about losing your job. You're worried about not getting a job, then take actions, right? Like say for example, if you're worried about not getting a job with your current major, then maybe take a lesson, take a class online about you don't know how to code, right? So because like even going forward, even if let's say the economy really goes downhill, or like people really got stuck in their home for a very long period of time, and you can imagine that there's going to be an increased need for this kind of like long distance digital coding, whatever. Like there's going to be something changing, but we are not really sure what that is. But you can take classes about some skills that you can work remotely, right? So those are actions that you can actually take.
So that helps you to calm down. Meanwhile, that helps you to prepare for the future.
Yeah,
so that's almost like the best thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. So take actions, prepare for the worst, and then but at the same time knowing that this is the worst, and things the actual outcome are likely to be much better than this.
And for the students who are listening to this, I think the same thing applies to preparing for the exams, doing homeworks, teamwork, and everything. So, and one thing you should keep in mind is it's not just you, right? Everybody is in the same situation. It's not like we're the only campus who got shut down. The whole UW system got shut down, and a lot of other campuses nationwide. So all the campuses and universities are working together. Not working together, but you know what I mean. It's just like people sharing how to do online teaching, all these kind of tools among all the teachers and staffs. So we're trying our best to make sure that all your study and all your career and all your graduation and everything to be as smooth as possible. It's gonna be not gonna be as good as offline, but I mean this is the best we can offer, and we're trying hard to do that. So if you're looking for resources and everything, basically if you just Google online, you will be able to find it because people are making them. Okay, people are making recommendations, people are making suggestions. So do not worry if you worry too much about, for example, like how do they take an exam. Leave the worry to our instructors. We will figure out a way to actually, you just need to follow the instructions, right? So don't worry about it. And also, if you're worrying about how am I supposed to be doing team working to do, for example, for my class, a writing project, well, if you have time to worry about it, why don't you just call your team members and start to communicate and say, hey, this is how we should work. Or if you figure out this is really not feasible, I don't have internet, I don't have a fixed schedule or anything, just, contact your professor, contact your instructor and say, hey, this is my situation. It's not like I like it, but can you do anything for me? Can you find somehow we design something together to make it work? So people are open to talk because they're very in bad time right now. But I think people are in good mentality to help each other, especially, from instructor and student relationships. So don't worry, don't hesitate to contact any professors, instructors, or officers on campus. I think everybody is still working remotely, starting, of course, we're still in spring break, so starting from next week and the week after. So don't worry too much on that. Try to communicate, try to take actions. So that's great. Now let's talk about the third thing we talked before. That is, let's say I was in my school, now all my friends are not with me right now, and I came back. And basically my parents came back, my brothers and sisters came back. We haven't been living all together for a long time. It's a small house, it's a really big crowd, and everybody stay at home. Everybody's facing the same anxiety, almost at different level, and we see each other every day, which is really boring. The relationship can start to get intense. And do you have any examples to tell us, like what kind of thing may happen due to anxieties, to what kind of problem can happen to your relationships with the people who are basically grounded into the house, into the same house as you?
So during this period of time, so because everybody has to be stuck at home, I will say many different kinds of interpersonal issues may emerge during this very special time and situation. One common thing is that people may have the issue of stepping on each other's toes, and people may have the issue of getting into each other's boundaries, right? Like say, for example, if you're a college student and you have been living alone on your own for about 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years in a dormitory, and nobody tell you what to do, right? When you are away on campus. And then now you are back home and your parents are around you every single day because they cannot go to work either. And if they see you there watching their, like sitting there watching TV, and they think, oh my God, I need some help with, with the grass. Come on and help me with the lawn. And then you feel like, oh my God, nobody tells me to do that in the past. I can watch TV whenever I want. So you can get frustrated. You can feel like, you're telling me to do something that I don't really want to do. What do I do about that? So if it's only one-time thing, you feel like, okay, I can suck it up. But if this happens again and again and repeatedly several times a day for God knows how long this is going to take, and then you can, it's going to take a toll on your feelings, on your emotions, and on your everyday functioning. So
plus, I think everybody is already on edge, like
right.
worrying about the job, getting the virus, and quitting from school. So it's really hard situation.
Right. So I would say that could be one challenge in this kind of situation. I would say that's also a very common challenge. Actually, several of my clients and patients have already begun to complain about these kind of issues to me in our work together in therapy. So I would say the boundary issue is a very important thing to do, and in this very special time, that I highly advise everybody to have a conversation with their parents, a communication open with their parents or with their family members, and to negotiate about a way to hang out with each other in a way that makes each other comfortable as much as possible. Okay, so for example, one of my patients told me that that sometimes
is that okay for you to share this? I don't know. Yeah, you know this better than me.
Right, yeah, because I'm not going to reveal any identifying information.
So we're good. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so we're
great.
good.
Yeah,
Because I'm not going to tell you, oh, this is my patient from certain kind of state, certain kind of age, which school that he or she attends. Without those kind of information, you won't be able to identify uh, at all about who this
okay.
patient is, so that would be fine.
Yep.
But anyway, so this is one of my patients, and who is also like you guys are kind of stuck at home and having to hang out with these family members. And then like he will say that his mom sometimes will like step into his boundaries and by telling him what to do. Um, Even though he is repeatedly saying that I really don't want to do that. And then like that can create a lot of frustration. So what we actually work out, which actually works pretty well for him, is that he has a very firm conversation with his mom, telling her that I really don't want that to happen again. And that is also part of the reason why I don't want to stay at home. So I know like in this kind of specific case, it can kind of gets a little escalated, but then it works. Like it works that it communicates to the family member that this is my boundary, this is what I don't really want to have. I really want you to respect that, and if there's anything I can do for you in return, that if you want me to behave in a certain way to make your living more comfortable in this house, please let me know, and I will very, very much like to do that and to respect that. So this shows your gesture of being respectful of other people's boundaries, and you can also be very assertive about what you need from other people to do to make your living comfortable. And this kind of communication, however it happens, however it takes place, is very critical for you guys to have a easy time going forward, because who knows how long this is going to be.
Interesting. So according to my experiences, if you don't communicate your needs or your boundaries clearly, other people will constantly step on it without even noticing. And then
Yeah,
you just generate resentfulness from yourself, which is basically nonsense because you didn't even give other people a chance to even do the thing you want them to do, right?
right. So like I would say, if you have if your parents happen to be super respectable and very mindful of your boundaries, very, like paying attention to these kind of things all the time, I would say you're very lucky. Okay. But then not everybody has that kind of parents, and not everybody, like can be fully paying so much attention to your boundaries. So that's why communication, negotiation, compromise is so important in order to have a good relationship between two human beings. So I would say this might be a good time for you to practice that, because this is a kind of skill that you're going to need, not only how to hang out with your parents, but also in the future how to hang out with your friends, how to hang out with your colleagues, how to hang out with your supervisors. This is a very critical piece.
Interesting. So being nice is not the right solution. Being kind is actually, right? So if you think about it, it's not like your parents don't want to
Mm-hmm.
respect your boundary. It's simply just they want to respect it, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't know where it is.
Right.
So please tell each other where it is, that the other people will actually be able to accommodate to that. Because now, I mean, you can see the situation all the time. It's just like kids or parents, they're trying to accommodate each other, but they don't know what to accommodate to,
Yeah.
unless other people say it, right?
Yeah, that can be one situation, which is that people are not aware. Okay, this is your, hot button. I don't want to press it. But there's also another kind of situation where, parents can be really anxious or worried about their kids, and they may have their own preoccupation about how things should be done in a certain way, and they can trying to insist that onto their kids. So in those kind of cases, you do, I'm sorry to say, but you do have parents who may not respect your boundaries as much as you want them to. And then that may require you to be more firm and to be more assertive, and maybe sometimes you need to repeat several times to your parents to make sure that they actually hear you. It can be frustrating, but then it happens, and it can happen to you, and you can also sometimes do the same thing to others, in the not intentionally. So you have to do that, because that's only the better way to go with it, as opposed to that you just like get frustrated again and again and again, building up the resentment, and which in the long run is going really to impair the relationship that you have with your parents.
Especially when we don't know how long this is going to last. So
Exactly.
definitely, yeah. Interesting. So, okay. So another thing we need we may have is actually isolation or the loneliness. right? Because even if I still live with my parents, yes, but I lose the connections to my friends offline. We cannot hang out together. We probably have a tradition to have a beer every Saturday night, but now I just feel like on Saturday night I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
I feel lonely. I feel alone. Even my girlfriend may and boyfriend may not be, at my side simply because, we each return to each other's family. How do we handle those kind of loneliness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question too. I would say, so people, especially college students, and when you are enjoying so much about the college life, and all of a sudden it's all come to a stop, that there's no more socializing, there's no more going to pubs, there's no more, like fraternity activities, then it can be a pretty boring life, to be honest, right? So, and then who knows again how long this is going to last. So you may feel very, very bored. You may feel like very stuck from that point of view. So I will say, um, so for this one, I would recommend a specific technique from psychology. We call that behavior activation, which means trying to be creative and trying to be thinking of as many as possible activities you can do given your circumstances that can make yourself happy. Okay, so say for example, you can start by trying to come up with a whole list of things that you used to enjoy. It could be like, oh, I really enjoy talking with my friends, like lying on the grass and talking with my friends. I really enjoy going to that particular club. I really enjoying, playing basketball together with my friends. But then now I can do any of those. Okay, and let's think for each of them, what can you do instead right now in these circumstances to replace that activity? Okay, say for example, you cannot play a basketball game with your friends anymore, but maybe you guys can play video games together online, like together, right? So in the past, you cannot you can hang out with your friends, lying on the grass or like hanging out in a club. Now you cannot do that anymore, but maybe you guys can pick up a
Play
phone.
video games. Yeah, for me, the only solution is just video games. Anything you like to do before now, video games.
So that's a very, very bad role model, and you should start picking yourself up for that. And you know that it's not true because I know that you talk a lot with your friends as well. So let's
Oh
put
yeah.
it into a more like holistic picture. But then you can talk with your friends, like say, I find this time to be myself to be very hard as well because I'm here by myself. I'm stuck in a room and not even with my family members because my family members are in China. So but I tend to use that as opportunity to like pick up the phone and talk with my friends. Even sometimes we haven't been able to talk for a very long period of time just because we're too busy. But now we have the chance to talk about things. We have the chance to tell each other how much I'm concerned about you, how much I'm worried about you, and let me know what I can do for you if you need anything. And that's really a moment to be connected with people on a deeper level, just because we're all facing this kind of same fate again at this point of our life.
It's crazy. This is a global thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I think we should thank the technology nowadays that makes such kind of like a video chats or like phone calls very, very easy, convenient, and not at a lot of cost. So I think we should take advantage of that and trying to see what we can do over the phone. Remember, we have people who have long distance relationships for years, and think about how they maintain their relationship, right? They have to do a lot of things over the phone. They probably watch a movie together over the phone. They have chats over the phone. They do a lot of things over the phone together. And you need to be creative to think of what you can do with your friends over the phone as well. Okay. And
Interesting.
that's the kind of solution. And also, like say, for example, you can also, in addition to think about what you can do to replace the activities you have already been doing at school, you miss doing at school. And you can also think about what staying at home give you unique opportunities to enjoy life that you do not used to have when you are at school on campus. Like say, for example, one of my patients told me that I have my dog and at home and I get to play with my dogs a lot. And I don't get to do that a lot in the past because I'm at school. Okay, that's one thing you can do. Or, I really have all these kind of models that I want to build up and, get together. And I really don't have the time to assemble them in the past, but now I have plenty of time to do that. or I have this hobby I really want to do but never get the time, but now this is the time for me to actually sit down there and to do it. So these are all the things that you can also be very creatively trying to come up with and to think about and trying to do these kind of things.
That's interesting. So is it fair for me to say if I feel lonely in this situation, instead of thinking about how lonely I am or feel lonely, again, better turn it into action. And then you will find this is actually not a loss of the lifestyle you used to have, but it's just a change of lifestyle instead of losing some lifestyle, right? So you're actually going to actively look for a new lifestyle, even just for a temporary lifestyle, to make your life even more enjoyable. So to me, that almost sounds like a luxury, because in this busy world, how rare do you have like a month all to yourself and you can do whatever you want to do, and nobody's going to push you. I already understand you, and if you don't go to work, there's no pressure because nobody goes to work. That would be a really nice way to think about it, right?
Yeah, and also remember what you are doing here right now, you're doing it together with many people in this country and many people even in this world. So I'm sure that very soon there are going to be some like a very new I don't know, new shows on the internet, or new ways, like people may begin to post all different kind of pictures on Instagram. Who knows? But I'm sure there's going to be something new coming out, just because people are all stuck at home and they have so much time and so much energy that they do not know where to spend. So I'm sure that if you play out your creativity, you probably can create something very interesting and post it online as well. Like
and new video games coming out. Yeah, Resident Evil 3 and the remake of Final Fantasy 7 is coming out in April. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and also one fun fact to know, Steam just hit 21 million people playing online games altogether yesterday, which is a record breaker.
Yeah, I heard people have to takes longer and to have to wait in turns to log into the game.
Yeah, when people get bored, just play video games. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I recently know that there's a lot of resources, which is published online by Google, Amazon, and also many national libraries. They just made a lot of resources free to the public that used to cost a lot of money. Look into those resources, trying to take advantage of them as well. And also, I think it's on yesterday, the press conference from the White House is saying that they're trying to talk with the big data, the data companies, or like Comcast, or like those kind of things, and trying to increase the data limit for people without any additional costs.
That's really nice, because I think I have T-Mobile and they just gave me 2 months of data plan for free, simply because you're bored. You need to have something to do.
Yeah, so they probably it's just like the old saying goes, some doors are closed, but now it seems like some other doors are open. So trying to look into those opportunities and trying to take advantage of that. And because remember, you are going to be stuck in this house for how long, which is again out of your control. You do not have control over that, right? It's controlled by coronavirus. So if you have to be stuck in that house for that given amount of period of time, you can choose to stay there bored, or you can choose to stay there being creative and being enjoyable.
So basically you do have a choice, right? You don't have a choice to go outside, but you do have a choice to make this experience miserable, maybe one of the most miserable memories in your life. Or you can say, hey, I actually didn't know I could do this. And turns out this is actually a good opportunity to reconnect with my friends, or just build something and try to see my potential. And you'll be amazed by how much you can do indoor.
Yeah, say for example, this podcast we have been talking about, Sung and I have been talking about for months, but we really don't have the time to do it. But
yeah,
we just right? And then we just take advantage of the free time that we have now and just put it into action. So don't complain about things, because when you complain about things and you think about what this means, right? This means that some kind of your needs are not being met. Then be creative and think about how you can do something and to make sure that that was taken care of.
Yeah, complaining just drag yourself down. Meanwhile, if you live with other people, they drag everybody's mood down. So, and you're going to be together for a long time. So basically try to cheer everybody's up. If you have the energy to reach out to other people, and you see them are a little bit down, then you can be the guy who actually initiate a lot of things. And if you're kind of down, don't be shy and look for helps, right? If there are people who are like me, for example, a lot of people got cheered up talking with me simply because I love to be staying at home. I can play video games all the time. And I just purchased I was watching the YouTube the other day, just some random video recommendations recommended me to watch table tennis again. I haven't been watching that thing for like 20 years. And then suddenly I found it's pretty amazing. And then I just want to, play ping pong. And guess what? I just found a guy who sells a used table tennis table on Craigslist for $50.
Yeah,
so
I saw the picture that you sent me the other day, and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing.
So I ordered the machine, I ordered the paddle, and I'm just going to practice ping pong like crazy.
Right.
So yeah,
but then there's another point I really want to highlight and I want to emphasize is that by saying don't complain, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to talk about your feelings. Okay. So I want to make a distinction because people may be confused, like 2.5 hours ago, we were talking about that you need to talk about your feelings. If you're anxious, don't bottle them up. So I want to say that you can talk about your feelings, and then that may be perceived as being complaining about things, right? So what we are trying to say again is not to do anything in an excessive amount. So it's okay to complain about things. It's okay to talk about your feelings, but it's not helpful to do the same thing again and again and again without doing any action. That does more harm to you than good. I like to complain things about as well. I want to talk about my feelings, but then I never allow myself to get myself stuck in the kind of feelings and then do not do anything. So I talk about my feelings to get clarity of my feelings, to get some channeling or social support to feel better. But then once I finish that, and I would just make a plan to do things, to problem solve, and to put everything into action right away. So you can talk about your feelings, but just don't do that again and again and again without doing anything to change the situation. That's going to be harmful for you. Okay, so I want to make that distinction because when we say don't complain, do actions, that could make people to feel like, oh, if I talk about my feelings at all, that may be like a complainer. I don't want to do that. No, that is not true. You can talk about your feelings. Don't put everything on your own shoulder. Don't bottle everything up in your own heart. Talk about it, find social support, emotional support, but then begin to do something to change the situation.
Great. So I think we covered everything we communicated before this podcast. Is there any other problems in terms of anxieties and your specialties you think we haven't touched about?
So I think we have covered the majority of the stuff, but I just want to say that so all the tips that we talk about today are just only some guidelines for you to better manage your time at home. So I will be very happy if these are helpful to you, and then I will be very happy to see people actually put them into practice, to actions. However, if you try these strategies, you try these tips, but still you find yourself to be very worried about things, that's very normal as well. Don't blame yourself, but instead go to find a psychologist, okay? Because I know nowadays, even though psychology or psychotherapy may not be considered to be like an essential business and may not be still open, but then many psychologists nowadays can do video sessions, video therapy. So you can definitely see a doctor just by doing video sessions. So trying to take advantage of these opportunities and make use of that, and to ease your time during this period of time as much as possible.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think I learned a lot, and I think it's super helpful. So I will try my best to deliver all your message to people I care and students I have, and also any other people I can reach out. So thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.